Minutes, any questions, additions, deletions to the minutes?
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, enhanced spring break services. All right, Cassandra, what's happening here?
I'm so glad I came up so quickly because you moved through that so
Oh,
fast.
fancy screen you got here, huh?
It is, because we can do fancy stuff in-house. So this was done by our in-house graphics art team, which is really nice. So this is the third year that we will be providing spring break promotional service for the heavy travel time that the beach experiences. Every year we get more and more demand from the public to provide service during spring break, and it is a lot of people trying to get out to the beach any way that they can. Parking is very expensive on the beach, and so we've been able to provide park and ride service in partnership with the city. And I want to emphasize that the city has been a tremendous partner in making sure that we can provide this service and is paying for a big portion of the operating cost of this service. And so we also have the added benefit of doing cross promotions with other activities that are happening out at the beach. So things like the Sugar Sand Festival. Last year, we were a big part of making sure that people could get out to enjoy that festival. In fact, when we didn't put enough service out, we got calls from beachgoers, we got calls from the organizers of Sugar Sand to make sure that we were putting out additional service to get people out to the beach. We've done a tremendous job of shifting some of our promotional concepts. And last year we did a big social media campaign, and we were able to build a lot of community awareness about the services that we provide and give people an opportunity to try something that they might not normally take. And our social media efforts gave us about 100,000 impressions. And so we're really reaching people and not talking to the people we normally talk to, but getting more people to know what we can provide to the entire county. And this also gives us better reasons to go and talk to the business community out at the beach, and they have been very supportive. And I think because of our efforts the last couple years, this has translated into more CPAS contracts for the agency because they're seeing the value of public transportation and the things that we're doing in partnership with the city. Last year, people just loved it, and each year this gets better and better. Of course, it said kids love it. My kids love all things that look like a trolley. So, but they did ask us, can we get out of the traffic? And we are trying to look at some options for that, but in the meantime, we'll be using the roadway as it is. So our proposal to the city and what we'll be providing this year is to have an 8-week service from March 1st to April 30th. People would be able to board free at the former City Hall lot, understanding that the city's moved out of the building on the bluff. And then also people would be able to board free at certain locations to get back. Last year we gave out free tickets as people boarded so that they could get back on easily, but there were crush loads at some points where it took too long to board the bus because people were just waiting so long we needed to get them on. So the APCs, or the automatic passenger counters that we've installed on the buses, will make a big difference to making sure that we count the riders properly as they're using the free stops. But again, it's those 3 stops that people will be able to get on for free in order to take advantage of the promotional service. We'll have certain service, 30-minute service during the week, being Monday through Thursday, and then better service on the weekends, where we found we had the majority of the ridership over the last couple years, noticing that Friday, Saturday, and Sundays were much more heavily traveled. We'll be adding additional service at the request of the city. So again, these are the 3 stops: the former City Hall lot, the Clearwater Beach Transit Center, which was also a jointly funded project with the city, and our new marina stop. Again, a partnership with the city. The city of Clearwater and the staff have been really great to work with on all of these projects. So the new marina stop, last year we went through the marina and we stopped sort of near the marina building, near the harbor of Arbor, and we had some issues with people having to walk through parking spots and things like that. So in collaboration with the city, we have worked on building a new marina stop at the eastern exit of the marina, and that'll be open probably a week before the spring break service begins. And it'll have space for 2 buses, and the city has been very accommodating in actually doing the construction for us. So that saved us quite a bit, using city staff to do that, as well as additional signage, striping, and looking at making this an exit only, so really making it convenient for the buses to come into the marina and then use this location and not interrupt marina business in the process. In addition to that, again, every year we make improvements. One of the improvements we are making this year is with our wayfinding. So we'll have new signs. We're working with the city to put those signs out on existing poles, so working with their sign ordinance. But also, they have permitted us to use these great new vinyl clings and put them on the sidewalks, so that people can know where they're getting on and how do they get back. And so that's what they'll look like this year. Very lovely, bright pink. And we'll have a social media campaign that we'll do with this. Last year, we purchased gift cards to restaurants and promoted the service by asking people to share and like, and that's how we got our 100,000 impressions. This year, because we have the data to show people out at the beach, the businesses, we're getting those donated. So those gift cards and tickets to attractions out at the beach are again a partnership with the beach community and the beach businesses. So we're excited about that change as well. So this is an information item. The City Council did approve their portion of the operating costs a couple weeks ago now, City Council, and then we'll have another agreement about the marina stop going to City Council this week.
Questions? Good, Commissioner Coleman?
I don't see on the partner list, I don't see Visit St. Pete Clearwater.
Okay.
Is that because they're not, or it was forgotten? And if they're not, are we doing anything to have them promote this through their website so visitors are looking at this as an alternative?
We do work with them to give this information out, but they're not an integral part to the actual service development. And so we're working more with local businesses on the service development side of it. So they do put it on their website. They do partner with us in that way. Their market is also bringing people in differently. So most of the people they're trying to speak to are staying out at the beach, and we're speaking to a local crowd of people who aren't staying on the beach, trying to get to the beach for an event or for a day.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions on this. This is great, and I know we do a great job on this. What are we doing to get people aware of this from other external things, like are there brochures at the hotels? Are there brochures at the airport when they get off, at the baggage area or something like that? So people know not to bring their cars onto the island and to use off-site parking like this. Park and rides are great ways to avoid the headaches on the island.
Again, the people we're trying to speak to are people who are going over for the day. So having the brochures on the beach hotels, people are already there.
Okay.
So we've done things like talk to Hillsborough County Community College. talk to SPC, people who are here and are going over for the day to take advantage of that opportunity. So yes, we're reaching out to other organizations, just not necessarily the ones that you've mentioned.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to figure out ways to keep, cars off the island in the first place. Because once they're there, then it just creates headaches.
Some of the research we did on the first 2 years of this was the number one way people found out about it was saw the sign. Saw the sign for the free park and ride at Clearwater City Hall.
Yeah.
And then there's a big variable message sign that Clearwater or
Yeah.
FDOT gives us. It says park for free, ride for free. And they veer off and they park there and then they know it.
Yeah. Commissioner Alpert?
Yeah, we're gonna have plenty of directionals in town showing people where to go to the old city hall. And actually, we're gonna make a parklet out of that parking lot where they'll have food and drink and tents and balloons and things and, make it an attraction that people can remember, so.
Very good. Okay, good, Commissioner Schulman.
You mentioned some of the local colleges. What about Pinellas County schools? Are they included in the outreach?
Or if we've done Peach Jar or something like that.
We haven't done Peach Jar. Peach Jar is a system that's used by most of the school systems to reach out to middle school and high school parents. It's an opt-in thing, and there's a fee associated with it. So when we looked at those, we decided not to include them this year because there's such a small reach for those. But we do have it on our social media, and we know that the high school kids that are interested in public transit or going to the beach are going to be looking for ways to get there. So,
Well, it may also be an option to reach out to county level PTA, because then
Yeah,
those
we've done that as well.
local agencies have their own newsletters that they can do that for free.
We can add that.
yeah, it's on the list.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All right. We're rooting for a big success this year, so we don't have the clogging out there.
Do the finance one.
Sorry.
That one. So thanks, Cassandra, for providing a nice, bright, sunny spring break PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Now for
Like the
all of
color
us
scheme.
policy wonk people in the room,
Yeah.
this is our eye candy. Talking about the non-member cities' participation in PSTA. I didn't add this slide to my presentation on the non-member cities. I wasn't sure if we were going to have a lot of new members here at the planning committee that we already saw this, but since we do have 2 new board members, I just want to show this one slide to put this discussion of the non-member cities in context of what a lot of work is being done right now by PSTA, Forward Pinellas, the county, to talk about all sorts of revenue options for all transportation modes, for road improvements, for transit improvements. So this is sort of the due diligence list that PSTA staff are taking the lead on analyzing. I have 2 check marks because those are the presentations we're making this month, but we will also be back to the committee with some more information on this list next month. We're looking at issues that were brought up at the January workshop or folks have identified at the 2 Forward Pinellas meetings that have happened since then and the PSTA meeting to look at all other options. Look at ways of saving money or identifying other forms of revenue, and certainly the non-member, the areas of the county that are not paying the ad valorem is an issue that lots of people come up with. But that's not all. We went to Tallahassee last week, and we're going again to talk to them about a whole bunch of legislative ideas that people have come up with, like could we increase the PSTA millage cap? Could we change the PSTA legislation to become like Hart is and have a $3 millage cap? The answer to both of those is no. I mean, or not recommended. Could we identify ways that Medicaid could pay for $1 million worth of our expenses that they should be paying that they're not? I think the answer to that is more positive. There's been lots of discussion about, well, perhaps STP or penny for Pinellas or some kind of restricted dollar or tourist development dollars could be allocated for transportation that's only capital. And so we're going to put together sort of a scenario planning on if it's capital fund, restricted to capital, how that helps us versus operating. And then some of the discussions about what does the gas tax generate, sales tax, etc. Forward Pinellas is working on, of course, as you know, on their long-range transportation plan, and Advantage Pinellas is the branding for working on transit improvements in certain corridors and how that would be phased in if new money is identified. So they're hard at work as well. I think the length of time it takes is mostly governed by the challenge in getting meetings on the calendar, as we've seen already. But my hope is that all the organizations will take action this spring. By June 1st, PSTA will vote on hopefully a shrunken down list of service adjustments, or a list that allows us to adjust services to reinvest those services rather than just save the money. The county commission will hopefully take some action, I'm not sure what, but some action on transportation revenue. For Pinellas will, more of a long-term thing, vote on their annual list of priorities that is then sent to FDOT, and the legislature will conclude. Now. Okay. Thank you. Dan. So, the number one on the Family Feud of PSTA thing that folks come up with is, well, what about St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island not paying? And that's just not fair. And Commissioner Schulman inspired me. I was very negative about giving this presentation, but he really asked for it. And I want to thank you, because I do think it's important that we all know. And I didn't know all of the history and issues related to these non-member cities, and I think it's important for us all just to understand this, the options that exist. My goal was to make a PowerPoint presentation that answered every possible question that Commissioner Schulman might want to ask, and I know I failed at that. So there'll be time for you to ask some questions. So the funding potential for these 7 areas of Pinellas County that do not pay the ad valorem property tax into PSTA is about $4 million. Now, geography quiz number 1 is, do you all know where all of these 7 areas are? I didn't exactly. Bel Air Beach and Bel Air Shore are right across the street from each other on Gulf Boulevard. The South Pasadena Fire District was a big area back in 1982, or 1974 actually, but it's very small now because St. Petersburg, Gulfport, and South Pasadena have annexed most of the areas that formerly was the unincorporated part of Pinellas County that constitutes the South Pasadena Fire District. So now it's just a little, it's about 2 streets, kind of in what you would think would be Gulfport, but it's not. Tierra Verde, St. Pete Beach, and Treasure Island are the 2 big areas that have very high property values and would generate the bulk of the funding. Now, of course, if they were to join PSTA, then they would not have a contract with, St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island would not have a contract for bus service, which is $838,000 that you would net out of that. So the net impact is $4.1 million. I very much enjoy learning the history of this this discussion about the non-member cities, and I haven't done a detailed, minute-by-minute analysis, but I believe there is no other subject that has consumed the PSTA or Central Pinellas Transit Authority boards since 1974 more than this one topic. Since the 70s, this has been what has consumed our agency, is these 7 areas and how they could possibly join the 20 other areas. In 1974, the Central Pinellas Transit Authority, it was before PSTA was created, had a vote that passed to expand CPTA to all unincorporated areas of the county. That was the ballot language, but the the referendum item was not put on the ballot in Tierra Verde in the South Pasadena Fire District. So that was debated whether or not those areas should be levied the property tax until 2003, for 20 years. And then in 2003, the property appraiser definitively said, well, since they didn't get to vote on it, you can't levy the property tax in those 2 areas. When PSTA was created in 1982, it was done through a two-vote process. One is to expand or create or expand the geographic boundaries of what is PSTA, and the other is on the ad valorem property tax. Tierra Verde and South Pasadena Fire District actually, maybe by error, voted in favor of the property tax, but they were never asked the question, number 1, to expand the district to include them. So, didn't count. Back in 1982. In the early 2000s is when really the discussion got hot and heavy. I joked with my staff, this is kind of a redundant sentence. There was an MPO study back in 2000 to study ways of improving transit. Really? That's been the history of the MPO, is to have a study going on at all times of that topic.
I think I did that study too.
Okay. Longtime chair of PSTA, Calvin Harris, this was his main initiative. He was constantly meeting with the mayors of St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island to try to get them to join PSTA. He worked so hard at it that Treasure Island specifically got a little concerned that they were going to be compelled to join PSTA somehow, and they went to State Senator Jones, Dennis Jones, and sort of complained about PSTA's effort to try to get them to join. State Senator Jones then sort of threw a nuclear bomb at the thing and proposed to eliminate the PSTA legislation, to wipe PSTA out, unless they would stop harassing Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach. So Commissioner Harris wisely took that, was worried about that, and so PSTA board then voted on a moratorium on seeking membership from St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island for 5 years. From 2005 to 2010, he promised Senator Jones, the board promised Senator Jones that they would not try to make any effort, and they had asked the MPO and Pinellas County not to make any effort to try to get those 2 cities to join PSTA, and that was agreed to by Senator Jones, and he withdrew his sort of doomsday proposal in exchange. That you've heard Commissioner Long talk about Senator Jones's. Or that's what that was. It was really just a PSTA agreement not to make any efforts to have them join, and that expired in 2010. Some of you might remember in 2015, the city of St. Pete Beach asked for a community redevelopment area, a CRA, where they could capture the property tax revenue in their community, and they went to the county commission. And there was discussions with the mayor and others from St. Pete Beach about, well, maybe the county commission would grant this authority if they would join PSTA, and that failed. They went back. They have not applied for a CRA since then, they obviously haven't made any efforts to join PSTA. I think Mayor Lowe at the time was maybe open to the idea of trying to do that, but then she moved to Paris. So the amount of service the PSTA provides, or the way we provide service in the 7 areas, is different. In Bel Air Beach and Bel Air Shore, the trolley goes right through those fine towns with no bus stop in their little area, but there's bus stops right on the outsides that people can walk to. Kenna City doesn't have any bus stops in Kenna City. It's a rectangle community. We have buses on all 4 sides. We have routes that go around it, and they just have bus stops on the one side of the street. Treasure Island has paid PSTA a contract roughly equal to the incremental amount of estimated cost of the trolley as it goes through Treasure Island. Same thing for St. Pete Beach since 2001 and 2003 for the trolleys that run there. And then the question about the bus rapid transit proposal, that has been recommended for to go to St. Pete Beach, where the highest ridership is, since it was adopted by the PSTA board as the locally preferred alternative back in 2007, and then that was adopted again in 2016. And it is the only option for the Central Avenue BRT that will generate the high rating that we currently have with the feds because of the ridership and the development potential of all those hotels compared to the other options. That is why it's recommended. That's why the project goes to St. Pete Beach. So what can be done about this? There's really 2 options. Option 1 is the one that we always talk about, is any of those 7 areas can decide, can vote on have a referendum in their community to join PSTA. That's fairly straight up. However, no study has done that. No area has done that in 37 years. That's been an option to them for 37 years, and they haven't taken advantage of it. So I'm not sure. That might change, but it might not change. There doesn't seem to be any appetite in those areas to do that. So option 2 is more interesting. This is a mechanism that is the way PSTA was created basically in 1982 that could be done again. And this would be the county commission essentially compelling these non-members to have the PSTA district encompass the entire county. And maybe could be viewed as correcting sort of an unfairness that has existed for a very long time. It would be complicated, though. It would be a 2-vote process. Vote number 1 is just of the current membership. All of us that don't live in those areas, we would vote, St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island would not vote on should the PSTA district be expanded to be county-wide. Yes or no? That has nothing to do with the tax. Maybe that might pass, I don't know. Step number 2 would be a vote across the whole county, including the non-member cities and the member cities, should the ad valorem of 0.75 be levied across the whole district. Yes or no? So even if Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach residents voted 100% against that, there might be enough votes county-wide. Most of the county population would not see any changes in how much they pay. It might pass. And that is a way, that is an option. Now, I presented this to the county commissioners that are on the PSTA board and to some others at our personnel committee. This came up last week, and with Commissioners Gerard and Long and Councilwoman Rice and Patty Johnson, and there was a lot of discussion about this. And the question came up, well, if you had to do a countywide referendum like this for $4 million, is it worth it? Is it worth the major effort to? And this is quite complicated. The number of people that could name the 7 non-member cities before I put this PowerPoint together was 1, Alan Zimmett. There's nobody else that knows, that really understands this. So this would be very complex to explain, you know, and if there is a countywide effort, maybe the value of whether it's worth it or not needs to be assessed. But that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Mr. Schulman.
First off, keep this presentation. You're going to need it 10 years from now, especially the history parts. So with option number 2, those 2 ballot initiatives don't have to be on the same ballot.
They don't have to be.
Right, so there could be a space in time where one exists to expand PSTA to the entire county, and then at a later date, the tax is then the ad valorem tax is reestablished.
Yes, Alan thought that, and he'll be here at the meeting to say it himself, but I asked him that question, and he said there's nothing prohibiting them from being on the same ballot. They were on the same ballot back in 1982, but then they could be on separate ballots.
I understand. And then option number 3, which isn't there, so we have contracted service with those non-member cities, or a couple of the non-member cities.
Yes.
Can we increase the contracted service rate to equal what the ad valorem would be? I realize they probably wouldn't accept the contract, but
We could propose that, certainly, but they have seen substantial increases they've agreed to regular increases in their payment each and every year.
Well, they're also with the BRT. They're both, St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island to a certain extent, are about to see an increase in human traffic. There's going to be people coming in and out of their community using the beaches and using the hotels and restaurants with the BRT. So there's an opportunity with that as well to at least make a case for us to, if we can take a big bite of that chunk that's still out there through the service contract, that might be an intermediate option versus going, having them join the entire PSTA.
Very true.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Lopez.
What does the countywide referendum cost? I mean, I assume you'd put it into with another election, but what would the cost of that be?
It's a good question. I don't know, do you know?
Not for that portion of it. It was $2 million in 2014. I don't know what it's been adjusted for. It was estimated at $2 million back in 2014.
If this was on its own election,
Yeah, but it's a smaller cost if you're just adding.
Just adding,
yeah,
Right, it's
valid
a
items.
proportionate supervisor service or something, but I wouldn't have, I don't know.
Just a question.
Yeah, I would think you'd want to put it as just another part. You wouldn't want to go out and spend $1 million in advertising, try and support this. That being said, there are certainly people in the community that would love to defeat this just for the sake of defeating it.
yeah.
Two of these entities are in my district, and the rest, I believe, are all in Commissioner Bennett's district. Is that correct? Going back to your chart,
Oh.
the potential chart. Yeah. Kenneth City and South Pasadena are mine, and I believe all the other beach communities are Commissioner Bennett, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I wonder if we should have some kind of a meeting with both of us and some county and PSTA people with the cities, these entities, and see if we can't soften them up a little bit before we go through that project. in order to have a better chance of success than what we had with Green Lake Pinellas. Because we really do need this money, and these guys are freeloading. So there's got to be some way that we can do this. It's unfortunate that this was allowed to happen, but the county was growing back in those days, and that's the way things worked. But we need that $4 million a year right now. So we need to figure out some way to do this in an effective manner, whether that's going with our hat in our hand to each of these cities, or whether it's doing something from the top down, where all you county guys, play the tough guy role. And I don't know the answer to the question, but we do need to work on this. Yeah, Commissioner Schulman?
You said that St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island pay for their own DART service?
Yes.
Correct. Do they pay the full rate
No.
for DART, or are we still subsidize the?
Well, we, on DART, as kind of Commissioner Ayers was talking about, we know where the people live because we go pick them up at their house. So we do an analysis of the number of residents who use DART over the last year that live in St. Pete Beach and then that live in Treasure Island, and build them the care ride rate on the DART piece. It's pretty small, but what's amazing is one person can cost $100,000 to one of those two cities. And if they die or they move, their number goes down by a substantial amount of money.
So when you say that they pay the care ride rate, they're paying the full care
Yes.
ride amount.
On
that
that,
we normally pay for those
computed,
trips.
that's how the formula is based.
Okay. And that's part of the $858,000 that you have as the current contract funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Brien?
The current contract funding is, which municipalities have that? All of them, or?
No, just St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island.
Just the two?
Yes.
Okay.
We have we have 3 routes that service those 2 communities. We have something called the Suncoast Beach Trolley that goes up and down Gulf Boulevard from Clearwater all the way down to St. Pete Beach, up and down Gulf Boulevard through all those cities. And that's the trolley that goes through Bel Air Beach and Bel Air Shore as well. And they have like a sunburst circle sign. You've seen it on Gulf Boulevard. Goes through all those little cities. It's very high ridership, especially during spring break. Treasure Island, that's the service that they pay for, plus DART in their city. St. Pete Beach pays for that, just a little bit of that, because it just comes to 75th and Gulf. And then what they mostly pay for is the Central Avenue trolley, which goes all the way down to Paso Grill in St. Pete Beach. They also pay a little bit for Route 90, which is an express bus that runs just 2 times a day from St. Pete, from Grand Central. It's basically a Tradewinds employee shuttle. Workers from St. Petersburg ride it to Tradewinds, and it goes across what's that called, the Bayway or whatever, and then up. So they pay for the miles that are just inside their border, and there's lots of debate whether that's not the full cost of any of those routes. There's lots of overhead that are associated that could be allocated to them that we don't allocate to them, say for like my salary, or Debbie's. They don't pay for that. So there's lots of ways to compute the number. We have done that for a long time in that same manner, and then have escalated, tried to get them to agree to increases in cost that cover, and actually more than cover, the increases in our actual costs, so that they are paying incrementally more and more and getting closer to a real, true incremental number. That's the strategy we've done over the last, say, 5 years.
Any other comments? All right, well, this is clearly an important area, and we need to work on this. I don't know that we have an immediate answer to it, but that's a lot of money that we're walking by right now that we need to figure out a way to get to. This needs to be done also at the Finance Committee. This was done a week when I wasn't there, so.
Well, I was going to present this as a full board.
Okay, fine, all right.
Well, that was, Mr. Chairman, that was my question is, where is the decision point? Are you coming to the full board? Is it on next week's agenda for the same discussion, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then ultimately, since I would hope that we could present this, or at least have a discussion with all the county commissioners, so the county commission knew. The decision on putting the two questions on the ballot would be the county commissions. So they are the ones that need to know.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any future meeting subjects that you want to touch on, Brad?
Well, that list, we're going to present some more things about the bed tax and Pinellas County school system proposal that we are meeting with the school administrator with next week on. Those are next month's main topics.
All right. Any other business? Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we're going to work on this, guys. This is really important. Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. We need your help.
That's not where I'm talking about. Yeah, well, I'm surprised I didn't get a text message being like, what are you doing? Well, I'm trying to say that people traffic, transportation.
I'll start using that.
No more home runs.
Still giving credit.